Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Ladies and gentlemen, listen. Ladies and gentlemen, listen up.
Comedy studio in your ear. Comedy studio in your ear. Comedy studio in your comedy studio.
Ho, ho, hello, and welcome to the Comedy Studio Podcast, the only podcast.
The only podcast.
Savor that voice, folks, because you're not going to hear it forever. I'm your host, Danny Hatch, your co-host, Eli Levy. Second to last show for Eli. Welcome.
Ooh, that's
How's
I thought
it
you were still going to be calling in and stuff.
Well, he'll be calling
and
in
stuff.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
I'll be doing
Really test me during these, Rick, I have to say.
stuff. Why must you test me so?
My favorite line from a Michael Showalter album where he's got a song about making a sandwich, and he goes at one point, "Why do you test me like this?" And I would then say that when I got frustrated in real life.
You say that all the
Eli?
time in the office.
Yeah, and that's all you
we
ever
love
say to
your
me.
your quirky quotes like that.
You know, I have a history of that. My father used to, not ironically, when we got in trouble for having bad grades or whatever, we would be on double secret probation, which is from Animal House.
Double
And
secret
so
probation.
I always grew up with a very negative association to double secret probation.
Well, whenever I was in that situation,
And
instead of
then-
being called that, it was called Eli. Shut the fuck up over there.
I would have much preferred that, because now I can't enjoy the funny movie. Eli, it's how you feeling?
Anxious, but who's not feeling anxious?
Huh.
But I feel good, to be honest with you.
We're auditioning your co-host today. Are you excited for that? Or your replacement?
My
Excuse me.
co-host. This is
Yes, my co-host.
Tough way to find out.
Well, I mean, hey, it's as long as it's another Jew, I'm happy.
Rick, I hate yelling at you. I really do. But it's like you're trying to get me to do it.
I haven't even
mean,
been introduced
there's-
yet.
Exactly.
So who are you talking to, Danny?
you're
Why
aware
are
of
you
the
talking to
problem.
nobody, Danny? There's
I don't
nobody
know.
here, Danny.
I think I'm going crazy, but not in the bad way to say that word. In the fun way, like the song. Are you ready to put him through the ringer, Eli? We got to introduce our first guest first.
Oh, am I gonna have to put effort into that?
I mean, only as much as we ever do with this. Folks, we
I'm
have two
confident.
special guests today. It's an exciting day here at the Comedy Studio. Lots of things happening. Our first special guest, he is the star of One Night in Rick, the only celebrity sex tape to come with a laugh track. Please welcome to the show, Rick Jenkins.
Yeah. See, I wasn't sure which way you were going. Thank you.
Welcome, Rick, to the show. It's so nice to hear your voice.
Sorry, is that sarcasm dripping?
No, not dripping. I would say pooling. Welcome. What's up with you?
What's up, bro?
I was really mean to you in that last step, even as I was trying vocally not to be. So
Vocally,
you know,
specifically.
welcome. It's so good to have you, as it always is. You bring so much to the proceedings. It's
Been
great to
reading-
have you again.
I've been reading about comic characters and exactly how Steve North's idea is that you work from you start with the character, your character, and then work out towards the writing. Whereas most of us learn how to write and then develop the character.
Well, I would love to learn to read first.
Mama never taught me how to read.
You excited to audition your new coach? Now, are you upset because it would seem so? Eli's leaving. We've been
Mhm.
over that a lot. So it would seem like first person
Until
to
that's done.
be bumped up. Well, I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, you know. So it would seem like the next person in line to be bumped up to that slot would be you.
I
Seeing as
could not
you-
handle that kind of responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah, but having to be
Good.
on this podcast every
Good.
Tuesday, there's no way Rick can do that. I
Yeah,
don't know,
having to
that's
get-
That's too much commitment.
Having to
good.
get things online, that'd be
That
tough.
takes care of that topic then. Our second special guest today, he's returning. It's our first ever second guest in a row week show that has an episode. He's very graciously returned for a callback. Last week was a stealth audition to see if he could be the new co-host for the show, if he has what it takes.
Metal Gear
And now we're
Solid
gonna
7 stealth
see-
audition.
now that he actually knows that that's what's happening, we're gonna see how he does. Please welcome to the show. He's got an Emmy, Mike Kaplan. Show us that Emmy. You must have it around. Can you give us a treat?
Well, I know that most people are only listening. There's some people that might be watching the video feed live as it happens, but
people watching.
4 people.
so for the people listening at home, here it is. Thank you for having me back.
Oh gosh,
Josh
thanks for
Gondelman, who
coming.
you are going to be doing the Chosen Show with on Thursday at thecomedystudio.com, actually brought his Emmy to the club because he came from the airport, did a set at the studio, and he was giving the Emmy to his parents to keep at their house, and he allowed all the comedians to hold it and take a picture as if it were their Emmy.
Let everyone
Very
kiss
nice.
it.
I mean, that is essentially the second best thing to winning an Emmy is making people think that you won one, even though nobody thinks that.
Now you
Actually,
can't
hold
do-
one.
I
That's his
would
best
love-
comedy writing is pretty
All
cool.
we want is for somebody to tell us to stop saying things on this podcast, and I want somebody to tell us officially from the Emmys to stop saying Mike Kaplan has an Emmy.
They're not.
Well,
Please.
here's the thing that I'll say about that. Have we talked about? Did you guys see The People versus Larry Flint?
No.
Did not see it. I hear Courtney Love is terrific in it.
Oh, it's. I really like the movie. And there's a scene in which I assume this is a real life thing that happened, that because it's a true story.
I was alive during that case.
And I believe they put something in Hustler magazine that implied or stated that Jerry Falwell had sex with his own mother in an outhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
Falwell was suing the magazine, saying that that wasn't true, that was libel, I believe,
It was
or
a pool
slander.
cabana, it turned
If they were
out.
saying, what's that?
It was a pool cabana, it turned out.
Yes, exactly. Danny,
Not an outhouse.
how do you do it? Why won't you stop? That's the thing that I usually say
Please
about
stop hurting
myself.
No, you're fitting in very well.
You're like me. But the way that Jerry Falwell lost that case was, I think he was asked on the stand, like, is there any possibility that people would have you had sex with your mother in an outhouse? Is what the opposing lawyer had to say. And he says, no, of course not. He's like, would anyone possibly reasonably believe that you did have sex with your mother in an outhouse? And he was like, no, of course not. Then they're like, well, great. Then it's satire and you lose. Like, only if people really believed it. And so now this is all to say, if the Emmys, at whatever point the Emmys come and tell you to stop saying that I have one,
Why
it's
would
because Danny, it's because it's plausible that I have friends who have them. I work in comedy. I've written comedy. There's things that I could have won an Emmy for. But so far,
And
yes.
you've been nominated to be nominated for a Grammy.
I've been
Thanks to us.
Of course, yes. Thank you for
You're welcome.
letting everyone know that it is, as I've said here before and lots of places, an honor merely to be submitted to be considered to be nominated.
So you think they listened to it and they were like, let's give it to the Michelle Obama audiobook. That has
Oh, no, they haven't listened to it. It's we have friends who could say, hey, you guys should listen to this.
Yes.
But when it's submitted to the Grammys, they don't even.
My mom just texted me a bit of trivia about that Larry Flint movie.
Yeah.
She said it was made in
Hello,
Memphis,
Betsy.
where I am from.
Eli was
really?
made in Memphis.
I was made in Memphis. No, I was. Yes, I was made in Memphis. Okay.
Courtney Love was actually nominated
Well, I
for
mean,
an Oscar or something, wasn't she? Yeah.
She was. I think she might have won it, in fact.
No. Best actress? I can't imagine that. Well, maybe best supporting.
I think. we know
Eli,
that
ask your
about
mom to
Courtney
Google that.
Love.
I'll
My,
just Google it.
so you
What am
lived
I
in.
Googling?
You grew up in Germantown.
Courtney Love and what if
No,
she got
it doesn't matter.
nominated
That's not
for
important. Don't do that.
the-
You grew up in Germantown, didn't you, Eli?
Yes, I grew up. Well, yeah, I grew up
And
in
I was conceived in Germany.
Germany.
Yes.
Really?
What is that noise?
My parents were in the army, and they were both stationed in Nuremberg.
Wow.
Is there some sort of Nazi tie-in here?
No, Rick.
Ha ha ha.
Come on,
Nuremberg, Jewish kid growing
You
up in
know that
Germantown.
I'm-
There's no connection.
Rick. It's not nice to do those kind of jokes anymore. Ever
I-
since the Geneva Convention of 2015.
I love the dynamic
Mm-hmm.
between you, Danny, and you, Rick, in that it reminds me of like my relationship with my mother. That like sometimes when I'm on the phone with my
don't
mother,
wanna know
because
which
we
is
are there's a thing, I forget where this is from, but like our parents know how to push our buttons because they installed them is a
Mhm.
thing. And so it's as if,
Good.
but to everyone else, if anyone else witnesses a conversation between me and my mother, or if anyone else witnesses the dynamic between you, Danny, and you, Rick, I think everyone else would be like, oh, what a delightful, like, the things that Rick says and does that get under your skin, Danny, don't get under everybody's skin.
No.
But because you are Rick's child, that is what happens.
And that's one of the buttons.
That's a I have
Yeah.
a that's a it's a problem I have.
Everybody
it's
calls
a
my
pattern
mother.
yes, please.
Sorry,
go.
no, you go ahead.
No. It's a pattern I have.
I
Please.
just want to say that everybody calls my mother the sweetest woman on earth, but meanwhile, my mom's talking to me like, "Hey, do you want to see a video of your birth?" I'm like, "Absolutely not."
Your mom is, but
Oh,
that's what
that's
makes her
sweet.
so sweet. There's so many different names for sweet, or meanings for sweet. She's cool. I like your mom. She's
Sweet.
I also
liberal.
like my mother. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Than some people's parents.
If I may say two things. Number
You may.
one, sweet mom, bro.
Nice.
And number two, has this whole planned exit of yours been just sort of a lead up to the manifestation of your last name, that you'll truly be Levy?
I
Mm.
went. Well, I wanted to end with Led Zeppelin's "When the Levy Breaks," but it's
Mm.
copyrighted.
It's
I
it's
understand.
illegal for us to do that. It's a I mean, it was always illegal, but it's a felony now
Yes.
for us to do that. Did you fellas see this?
Yes,
You
that's,
felony
that's in
fellas.
return. Yeah, in return for giving us enough money to stay alive,
Felonious.
we have to criminalize streaming.
In the stimulus bill, they added it's a big old stack
Oh.
of pancakes. They added all sorts of pork to it. One of which being that illegal streaming is now a felony, punishable.
What
by up to
is
10
illegal
years in jail.
streaming?
Good question.
Taking a movie and not paying for it.
Mhm.
What about if you
So in
take
theory,
like
we've all done it.
I mean,
What if you
that's
take an-
always been a felony.
an old
That's
comedy
been a while.
trope, and like that you
Well,
didn't
then it's
create?
different now.
And if you're like, am I right, felonies? That's all I wanted to do.
Okay.
No, that's good. Hey, so how are you doing, Mike?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Mhm.
I am mentally well. I was just playing the game Codenames, as I often do
Oh,
on
what a
Oh,
fun
Codenames is a great
Tuesdays.
game.
I play with other comedians like Liz Glazer and moms like Liz Glazer's mom and my mom, and then a few other folks as well. And also, so that was a fun time. Also, I have a pain in my side that feels like a bruised rib, but I've been concerned about because I don't like to have a pain in my side.
You gonna go to the doctor? Or are
I
you
have
afraid
that.
of them?
I mean, I think right now I've looked up what pain in that area could be, and it seems
Ooh,
like
that's
the
a big thing.
likeliest thing is that it's a
Butt
pulled muscle
cancer. Oh.
or a bruised rib. It is a possibility that it is bone cancer. Bone cancer does make your ribs hurt also.
Hmm.
I don't know if it would come on so suddenly, but if
That's
it
the
keeps
thing.
getting more and more painful, I will go to a medical professional.
So you're not afraid of doctors?
I mean, I'm certainly not going to a doctor as soon these days.
Mhm.
I'm afraid of sickness and disease, more than doctors.
Are you
There's a
afraid
big
of,
one
like,
going
the-
around these days.
My roommate is very afraid of doctors. We got a COVID test one time, and she started visibly crying
Mm.
as the COVID test was being done.
Mhm.
And she does.
Hurts.
She told us she does the same thing for when they take your blood pressure with just the arm belt.
Yeah, I have to be held down for a just for like an allergy shot or something. I have such a needlephobia that I
Wow.
really have to have like interns or orderlies or something come in and hold me down so I can get the shot.
Oh, you
And
should
do you
bring
think-
Danny with you. He'll be like, "I volunteer."
Yeah. You
I'll
like
hold him
thrash?
down.
You like thrash around like a
Let me just
maniac?
get these straps.
Rick, do you think that that's because you never did any drugs of any kind, including hardcore needle drugs?
No, I think that's actually what's kept me from the hardcore drugs is I had very chronic asthma as a kid. And back then they treated asthma as an allergy. So I got allergy shots like twice a week for the first 6 years of my life.
Oh, wow.
And because it was, just a nurse or something, they would frequently miss and hit the muscle, which causes a reaction and inflammation. So my mind probably could have gone either way. That it doesn't bother me at all because I've had so much, but it went in the direction of now there's a real phobia to point of if something comes on about the vaccines for COVID, I will turn the other way rather than see the needle. And I no problem giving blood in the forearm or anything, but the idea of a needle into the bicep is I have to be held down.
Are you gonna
I'm
get
sorry,
the
doctor.
vaccine?
You're gonna have to give me that COVID shot directly into my balls. Thank you.
Well, two
Good
things.
one.
Are you gonna get the vaccine? Yes, and it's a shame that you're leaving just now. Is it? Finally, not finally, but you're really making good ones, and it's a shame to lose you. Are you gonna get the vaccine, Rick? If you when you can. I mean, you're in a risk group. You're what 84? You got
In a Rick group.
Yeah.
He's in a Rick group.
Well,
a
you're
high
like
Rick group.
1,000, right? Ballpark in here.
Oh, you were alive when Larry Flint was doing his shenanigans. That was in,
Yeah,
what, the
it's
20s?
a real dilemma. I mean, I have spent I have not gotten a shot in the last 3 decades because of that. So I'm due for
didn't get your
tetanus.
flu
I'm
shot
due for
either.
all sorts of stuff.
And
So I
two-
think it's one of those things of I'm just going to have to go like, all right, maybe in the last 3 decades I've grown up enough that I can just look the other way and do it.
You're a big boy now. You can do it.
Yeah, I trust you.
I
You've
hope so.
eaten enough shit that surely a needle won't scare you. And two, they make drugs now that you don't need needles for.
Well, if the vaccine is I go in every year for my annual physical, and I tell my doctor I'll do a tetanus if I can get it through the nose, through an IV, whatever, any way other than a needle into the bicep.
Is there a reason your pants are already down, Mr. Jenkins? You're here for a shot
No,
today.
actually.
Now, one of the things about the show, Mike, is the unstated goal is we're going to try to get Rick to become addicted to drugs.
Oh,
And then once that happens, then we can end the podcast having achieved its unstated mission.
now
Which
when
drug, as someone who's done ayahuasca and marijuana, I don't know what else you've done. What drug would you recommend for me to start with?
Ayahuasca.
what a great question. I mean,
Is that how
sin-
it's pronounced? I don't know.
No,
uh,
I'm saying, yeah, that's the drug you should start with.
Okay.
it is something that I would say, like, I understand why we're calling them drugs, but certainly marijuana is very different from ayahuasca.
Mhm.
And I know people who are like ayahuasca, in fact, isn't something that I feel like is in I've never heard of it being addictive. In fact, I think it's sometimes used therapeutically to help people kick addictions like to other things that like it also is something that's helpful with PTSD. It could help maybe get you over your needle phobia.
I started reading is it Pollard, his book?
Pollan, Michael Pollan.
Michael Pollan. I started reading his book, but then loaned it to my therapist who never gave it back.
Ooh, another bit of trivia from dear old Mother Levy. Well, actually, she goes by. My mom kept her maiden
Yeah,
name.
but let's start
But-
calling her that.
Yeah, no, she goes by Olam. That's her actual last name. But anyway, and her bank account number is. But anyway, she sent me a message saying that the polio vaccine was given in a sugar cube.
Huh?
Yes. Do you know why?
No,
Because everyone
I-
who had it was a horse.
No, this is really Wendy Liebman, good friend of ours who's been on our show, terrific woman, married the son of the guy who wrote all the Disney songs.
Son of a guy.
And they wrote a song they really, really liked for Mary Poppins, and Julie Andrews refused it and said no. And he was in a really shitty, terrible mood and came home from work. And his daughter came in. So this is why it's, and you'll see. His son, I think, one of the kids comes in and he's like, so what did you do in school today? And they, oh, we got the polio vaccine. And he's, oh, that must have been terrible. She goes, no, they put it like a drop like on a cube of sugar. And goes like, oh, and called his brother. They wrote songs together, ran into the office and wrote a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Julie Andrews was able to veto songs for
Apparently.
Sound of Music. Not Sound of Music. Mary Poppins.
Well, what was the song that she was vetoing? Because before that that was the song, "A Spoonful of Sugar Makes the Medicine Go Down," the song must have just been like, "You gotta just drink this horrible medicine."
They mentioned the title. Wendy mentioned the title of the song, and I had never heard of it. So I don't know if they just drop a song when it's not used, or they use it.
Medicine
for
sucks. Doctors are bad.
There you
That they're
go.
like, I'm not gonna put that one in our.
And then Trump 2020 for some reason. We don't know why.
So Danny, my quick question to you before I continue to answer Rick's sincere
Yes.
question.
Okay.
Question to clarify for your joke question. Your sincere question.
Yeah.
You're not joking.
No,
ever.
I'm on the same page as you.
Now,
Not
when
a
you say
paper cut.
we want Rick to be hooked on or
Mhm.
addicted to drugs,
Mhm.
does it when it's interesting because do you want him to be addicted to multiple drugs or any one drug will do? Because usually, I would say most of the time one is enough if you're addicted.
It can get expensive.
Yeah, and so does it matter to you which one it is?
No, not
that
at all.
Okay.
It could be Allegra.
Do
Huh.
you know? Here's something that I learned
Which would
long
be
ago.
meth.
Addicted
Right?
to zinc.
Well, wouldn't like Allegra be because that's an anti-allergy, and I think most of the anti-allergies are in the amphetamine category, aren't they?
Well, I think what you're prescribed is much closer to meth, which is Adderall. So
Yeah.
I guess mission
Oh,
accomplished for us.
It's right there.
End of the show.
Here-
Okay,
well-
Rick's been on
real
Adderall
quick,
for
we
a
got
year.
we got a comment from Casey Crawford, and I
Oh.
really can't remember the context for this.
Right after
so
I said
you might be
mission
able to remind me.
accomplished, I guess.
He commented, trypanophobia. Were you guys asking about what a type of fear was?
What does that
probably.
fear mean?
I
Well,
black
Googling
out.
it.
That
Look it
may
up,
be,
Eli.
yeah, fear of needle. That might
That's
be.
probably.
Yep, fear
so-
of needles. That's
Yeah,
fear of needles
okay.
right there.
Thank you.
Trypanophobia.
Thank you, Code.
Now
Casey, you'll have
just-
to write that down.
to figure out the context.
It's nice to know that you're bad with pronouncing white people's names too. After one of our shows this weekend.
So here's a
Kase Crawford.
Oh. yes, Eli. It's hard to audition for your part when you keep doing your part.
But this is what you're up
This
against.
is what we call the ringer.
But,
Three
but
hungry hippos are always on the show trying to eat all those little balls.
if I may, here's something that I learned years ago that I haven't been able to find this study since, but I think it was like a British study of different drugs, different substances, and they ranked them from the least to the most dangerous with respect to how much you need of it to get high compared to how much you need of it to overdose on it. Like there's like marijuana was on the most harmless end of the spectrum. You need not a lot of it to get high, and you would need so much of it to die from marijuana like that, such that it's maybe happened once, but that was it almost can't happen. Whereas heroin is on the other end of it. Where heroin, it's so close, the amount you need to get high and the amount that you need to overdose compared to most other substances. Fun trivia fact, do you know what substance is second most dangerous on this scale?
Sugar.
A fine guess. It is something that you could put in a hot drink.
Tea. No, that is a hot drink.
Tea,
Honey.
mushrooms.
At
Like
this time of
blood.
year.
Alcohol.
Did you say
Nutmeg?
blood?
Nutmeg.
Nutmeg is 100% correct. Alcohol's in the
Wow.
middle. Alcohol and cocaine are about half and halfway. Mushrooms and LSD are closer to pot. But nutmeg, if you ingest enough of it, you will hallucinate. But a little more than that, and you'll die.
Wait, what? That challenge where people were putting like powder into their mouth and like coughing up, was that nutmeg or was that cinnamon?
Cinnamon.
The cinnamon challenge.
And it was. I think you had to try to swallow the cinnamon.
Thought it was
So-
Thai.
What?
So, what was that, Rick?
I had a question, and we always like to let our guests ask their questions or save their statements. Rick, the floor is yours.
Am I a guest?
You're. Are you a guest?
You know, interesting. When you bring up just the word overdose, I find very interesting because when you say someone overdoses, a lot of people assume that means they're dead, which is which is not true.
Yeah.
But also that implies that there is a recommended or a safe dosage, and they went over that.
Well,
So
overdose
pretty
is-
much anything could be an overdose, couldn't it?
Yeah. but,
I
basically-
like
No,
I
go
like
ahead.
this question, and I think that it exists on everything exists on a spectrum of a kind. So, like, I'd say the law would probably say that any dose is an overdose if it's an illegal drug, but a scientist might say, for like these days, marijuana is legal so many places, so a dose of marijuana is not an overdose of marijuana. An overdose of marijuana would be something that had effects that, you're put into a coma, your heart stops working, whatever it is that a particular, I don't know what a marijuana overdose looks like, but I think for everything else, it's sort of the same way that like different countries have different languages, and different languages potentially have different dialects of those languages, but the distinction between a language and a dialect isn't always clear because, for example, like Bosnian and Serbo-Croatian, I understand they're called different languages, but you can if you speak one, you can understand the other one the same way that a British English speaker could understand an American English speaker. Some words might be different, but it's the same language, but they call it a different language because it's a different country, whereas Mandarin and Cantonese are both they're called dialects of Chinese because they both exist in China, but if you speak one, you don't necessarily understand the other.
And that's why
so
we
in a
can't
way, they are more
understand-
separate languages.
That's why we don't understand the South.
And so, yeah, that is
What?
exactly right. A fun joke. And
I'm
and
in
so
the South, Rick. Can you understand me? I admit that, Greg. Can you
I have
understand
had
the
that
South?
experience.
Have
when
I
someone
needed a
is speaking
translator this whole
English.
time?
Danny,
Well, I think we've all had that experience
Yes.
where someone is speaking English, but the accent is so heavy that you can't understand them.
I think
yeah.
you're specifically talking about Louisiana.
and
But
that
I
is,
am in Maryland, which is the South.
by some
Mason
arguments,
Dixon?
You keep saying
Kissing that line, but we are
So-
below it.
the reason I brought up dialects and languages, which is fun for its own sake, and we're having a great time.
But now we're bringing it back to the through line.
Yeah, the idea that to call something what is a dose versus an overdose, like where you're going to draw the line of whether one is, one is something one is something the other, is going to be determined by like what the governing body of
Mhm.
like this particular vernacular is.
Danny, have you done ayahuasca? And is the vomiting worth it? I saw pictures of people doing it and like violently throwing up at the end, and I'm like, that can't be worth it. It can't be that good. That
Yeah, but you say that.
You
but,
know
like,
you're
I
gonna
vomit
throw
all the
up.
time when I drink, but then I drink the next day. What's the fucking difference?
Yes, I've
but you
never.
don't go into it aiming to knowing
But I
that.
know I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Like,
you
they
don't.
give you
You don't have a
buckets
beer
that
and
you
go like,
should-
yeah, this is going to end up in vomit.
Yeah, well, they give you buckets you should aim at.
Yeah.
I've never done it.
No?
But the vomiting is not
How
what
come?
scares me. It's the visions.
You have
It's-
partaken many of these hallucinogenics. Why not
the
that?
vomiting is what
I've
scares you. It's
taken,
the effects of the drug is what scares you, Danny,
Mm-hmm.
or the effects of the plant. Sorry.
The vision quest.
Uh,
I have not taken. I've taken mushrooms a handful of times, probably about 8 or 9 times. And that's it as far as hallucinogens go.
Rick, if I may answer your question from my experience, having done ayahuasca, having sometimes vomited, sometimes not vomited, probably it's about 50-50. Yeah, there's many people, like, it's not a vomiting experience. You are given a bucket. But also, this is not a perfect analogy, but like, what's your favorite food, Rick?
Let's go with pizza.
So you love eating pizza, even though you have to have poop come out of your butt after you eat it. Is that...
I find the
I
poop
said-
experience very pleasant.
And that is the way that many people find the vomiting experience.
Really? They
yes,
enjoy
it
the
is.
vomit.
Yeah, sometimes the guide that I've gone to will say to
Alright,
people,
Huh.
some people, he says, sometimes a person will vomit, sometimes everyone will vomit. He says, if you do not vomit, do not be jealous of the people that vomit. It's called, sometimes they call it cleansing or cleaning. It is, he says that there is vomiting joyfully. And here's the thing. I was exactly like you with respect to this. Like, I remember when I first heard about ayahuasca in my 20s, and people said, oh yeah, it sometimes involves purging, from either end of your body, depending on the strain,
Oh,
depending
does
on
that
the...
happen? Oh,
Yeah, that there's
Oh,
some...
so you'll be into it, Rick.
and you get a bucket for that.
Well, my understanding is that there are certain strains. They're called different colors of ayahuasca. There's like yellow, there's, I think, red, black.
Indica and sativa.
Exactly, Danny. And
Pepperoni, mushroom.
there's
Yes, you're getting mushrooms.
some genres of it that would not be done if you're in a building, but that would only be done if you're like in a circle, sitting in a circle in the jungle where you can like go a few steps away, and it happens, and then you come back, and so. But for the most part, it is not. You can get to a bathroom if you need to. Like,
And you're conscious enough of like, oh, I have to do this. I'm gonna go take a couple steps away. It's not like you're in outer
yes.
space somewhere, and all of a sudden you wake up in your own stuff.
Yes, I would say that from my own experience, whenever I've needed to vomit, I have. For me, it's actually the way that it works. Usually, is that vomiting happens towards the beginning of the experience. Like you drink the substance, it's in your system, and then sometimes it kicks into gear. Like maybe a half hour in, an hour in, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you get a second shot of it if it hasn't made you feel the effects, but often it is vomiting. Like sometimes when I feel the vomiting coming on, when the cleaning happens, that is the thing that helps propel it into gear, and sort of like get you through this asteroid belt into the outer or inner space, so that I now previously would have been like, I don't want to vomit, so I don't want to do this thing.
Yeah.
But now having done it, having experienced the powerful like substance of the experiences of the substance, it is, the vomiting, if it does happen, is only like for a minute or a couple minutes out of the 4 hours. And it's usually earlier on. It's not the conclusion. It's not the thing that you leave only remembering. It is sometimes a joyful thing. It does go along with it working. It means that it's like, oh, this is potentially happening.
So
it
in
means
any
that,
case, it's worth it.
yeah, I would say on the other side of it, I'm like telling you and my past self who was afraid, being like, yes, do this and you will feel ultimately that this has been worth it.
And having done it, you can speak to your previous self. Eli, have you ever tried any hallucinogenics?
I've done acid once.
Yeah.
And I did shrooms, but they were old and they didn't work. So, but I do like the idea of coming to a building and knocking on the door, and a guy's like, "Hey, welcome. Here's your bucket."
And
I've done acid, and it was very fun. We painted and we listened to music.
Anyone familiar with the song Spirit Voices by Paul Simon from the album Rhythm of the Saints?
No.
It's about him going to Peru to take ayahuasca.
If we're ready to cancel this podcast, I can go ahead and pull that song up and get us canceled.
Eli, you salty fuck.
We call that Eli's Revenge.
Now,
Montezuma's
I like
Revenge,
that.
and this is Eli's Revenge, is a DMCA band.
And if we're all on Zoom, so it's Zuma's Revenge.
Oh,
Did I add something?
Name for a Zoom show is Montezuma's Revenge.
Oh yeah. Well, now that you're not going to be on this show, Eli, you got the whole world.
You're gonna be twitching, huh, Eli?
No.
Because you're addicted to drugs.
Oh yeah, I'll be
Why?
twitching very soon. I need to come up with a consistent stream schedule, so I'm trying to put that together over the next few weeks.
24/7, 365.
Quick thing. 2 questions, Danny. One about that phrase. Have you ever thought about how you could just say 27 365? What does the 7 add to it?
Just that it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, it is fun to say. But have you ever thought about that? That's my first
No, I
question.
guess
I think
I
it's just
don't-
a bit of an over assumption.
Fine.
Why plan that far ahead when you could just live week to week?
And my
But then
second,
then I did plan far ahead when I said 365.
yeah.
I guess you
my
did,
second
you
question.
overshot yourself.
But
And
no,
then
yeah.
justified
answer-
too much.
Yes. Much like Ernest Hemingway, I overshot myself.
Yeah. So Eli, why Twitch?
Oh, Mike has another question for Danny.
We had that wonderful holiday Christmas party at the Comedy Studio as always.
Uh-huh.
And we went over Discord, and I had trouble getting Discord to work because when you told me to look at the bottom thing, I did not have a little live thing. But on the other hand, when it told me to download something, it wouldn't download. So I think it's my browser.
You can use Discord on the browser, so.
On Fox.
Sounds like we solved that.
I mean, it looked
My
like you were in
browser
there. I saw
is-
you in the room.
Eli, is it possible that
I couldn't see the video.
Rick's browser is just him looking in windows, thinking about shopping? Yeah.
95 of them.
Yeah, his browser is just the hair above his eyes. Yeah.
Mike, you had a second question?
Oh yes. I have I have a bunch of things that have come up since
The
then.
listeners
But
hate when we leave threads untied.
I
I
understand.
don't know if they can
That's
see
what
you
they hate
getting
about this
frustrated, but
podcast,
it's really fun.
I'm not. I'm having fun. I'm
Uh,
drinking my green juice. Just kidding. It's a sugar-free Monster Energy drink.
Oh God, that's the color it is.
Well, this is they have many variants. So it's one variant.
That looks like Slurm from Futurama.
Oh, yeah.
Just get shot out of an alien's asshole.
Yep.
Zuma's Revenge. So Futurumas. So Danny, my second question is now I know that this is my callback audition to potentially co-host the show, and I understand now that one of the goals is to get Rick addicted to drugs, but we've done that. He is addicted to Adderall. And the idea of I think there was the other thing, a quick joke that I don't remember what it was, but Rick, you said something about a dose or a second dose or an overdose, like it whatever. A couple minutes ago, there was some really ripe opportunity for a callback in a different way, but I don't remember it. But I'll listen back to this. But my final second question to you, Danny, is when I've been on the show before as a guest, I've noticed that we always start in a way that seems kind of potentially chaotic. Like it seems as though you're doing your best both to maintain order and also undermine that maintenance of order in a yin and yang, a beautiful yin yang that I really enjoy. And then I always feel, as a person unfamiliar with how it goes all the time, I'm like, is this the goal, or are we going somewhere? Is something going? And then eventually there always is some plan, some bit, some central motif, some idea that we get to. And so my question is there such a thing this week? Like, is there a there that we're going for?
Well, my question for you is, what is it? This is part of your audition.
What do you want out of this podcast,
Take
Mike?
us there, Maestro. Mike Stro.
Well, I mean,
No one's ever done that before, I bet.
I actually don't know if I don't know that I have heard that.
So you're welcome.
So thank you very much.
I already said it.
So I think that this episode, I mean, it does seem like my callback audition for the co-host job is potentially the centerpiece of this show. Or if I say it is, because you've asked me what it is, I will say it is. But also, as a co-host, I would want to be more gracious, more hospitable, more welcoming of the guests than I am when I am the guest. I'm certainly welcoming and hospitable to myself right now.
Sure.
Thank you so much. And I think that our dynamic, Danny, we've known each other a long time, of course. And
almost 2 years now.
Yeah, we've podcasted many times in those 2 years. And we have, we know each other, we like each other. And also there's the dynamic between you and Rick. And so I think the new element of all three of our dynamics will be
me and
that
Eli.
No, Eli doesn't matter. He's gone. Yeah, Eli's gone. I mean,
you're filling in, aren't you?
Eventually, when Eli's
so
gone,
dead, he's
sinking
twitching.
those claws in.
Yeah.
Yes, that was good, Rick. Rick said, "So dead, he's twitching."
Yeah. And so I think my dynamic will be to encourage you to take it easier on Rick. That sort of feeds in and encourage Rick to. I want to spend this whole time talking about how I want to hear what Rick says. What does Rick have to say?
So you see yourself more as a therapist.
Unlock some potential for us. We've tried it. Why did you become this mean in the first place? We're 70 billion asshole episodes in. Why am I mean now?
I would recommend that
I
in the
used to be
future
very
you give
nice.
muting rights over to Mike instead of Danny.
Never.
That might be the way to go.
I'll also add that my only so I definitely would love the job.
Good.
I would
Well,
love
when
the
you say
opportunity.
job,
Surprised the hell out of me. Yeah.
what do you think? What is a job to you?
Oh, it's just what I'm calling being the co-host.
Okay.
A
Yeah.
required task.
Okay.
I guess it would
we
be.
don't get paid to do the podcast.
Oh yeah, a labor of love.
Okay. Whoops. We'll cut you in. The ad deals that you're going to be responsible for bringing with your
yeah,
higher
So
profile.
you'll cut me in on the ad revenue once you add revenue to the situation. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
you are excited to do this?
I
'Cause
am.
Yeah.
My
okay.
only reservation
Mm.
is the show seems like it is hosted by and all the times that I've been on it, guested by white men.
Mhm.
And so I guess if I
Mhm.
were given the job, I would encourage us to reach outward and have more folks that don't look just like us. Like once Eli's gone, we'll all have glasses.
Yeah,
and so
once
we want
the
to
Southern man's gone, you'll be able to have other races on. It'll be a lot easier for you.
Gee,
Yeah.
trying to undermine me already. How dare you?
And Danny, I don't know how much you've talked about. Like, here's the thing. Like, I don't know what anybody's sexuality is except for people who've told me and my own. But yeah, I want us to start talking about everybody's sexuality because that's
At the top of
somewhere
the show.
we've got some diversity in here. And but yeah, no, I would. That's the only reason that I would be happy to not accept the job is if it were decided that a different voice.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mike. It looks
Yeah.
like someone muted you.
That's been a consistent
You
concern.
started talking heresy up in this podcast, you know.
Interestingly,
you got two Southern
Sorry,
guys
I
we're
think
talking about-
that there was a bug or something.
Oh, it said the bug said that the host muted me.
Oh no, it's that one.
As we're talking about changing the schedule and everything for the studio, January 1st, we're going to be doing
Oh, yeah.
different types of shows and blah, 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 all that
Yeah,
sort of
we're
thing.
taking a break, by the way.
It was brought up that aside from the shows I host, all the other shows are middle-aged white women.
That
Kinda weird. Yeah.
Wow.
It's good.
Yeah, something you wouldn't have thought of as like, oh yeah, it's all that.
I guess it's it all reminds me of the classic Rick Jenkins bit from I think I must have seen it starting when I started out there in 1999 between then and 2002 of the classic Harvard woman who was sitting in the front row and expressed her genuine feelings about the show to the show in a way that was has become beloved. So I feel like it seems to me like that woman is hosting I don't know. I was gonna say I know that to say spirit animal is appropriative of indigenous culture, and to say Patronus is now less desirable because of the transphobia in J.K. Rowling's recent
Hey.
statements.
Oh,
So
okay.
She
J.K.
is, but the
Simmons
book
is a-
isn't.
what? So, but to still, I feel like an asterisk is necessary. Is there something that we can use to replace both of those? And whatever that word is, that's what I feel like of the comedy studio. The middle-aged liberal woman is,
Well, I think.
How about
I think-
Ingram? Ingram's a good word.
you know what? I think we struck upon as a society Karen.
mm,
I mean, in my thing, it was more of a Cambridge liberal, older hippie type person. But I think now society's sort of a, if you had to let a broad audience know, Karen would probably be the way to go.
I don't believe they want to be called a
Yes.
broad audience.
Thank
That's
you.
Yeah,
Look
the
at
Comedy
you.
Studios Karen is.
Mike
Really,
and I
even
are
if they
on the
live in
wavelength.
Broad City.
and also, yeah, I think Karen, in my understanding, is not a word that people would choose to call themselves
Right.
because
Unless they
it
name
is.
their child Karen.
It does seem to be a pejorative.
Mike, you're absolutely right. We could and should strive for better and more diversity.
I feel that you could.
To be fair, you are right.
I thank you. It's
So that's your first task, I guess.
All right.
Uh,
Well, yeah. Good question. So who would you like to see as guests on the show?
well, certainly for Boston comedians.
I
I
mean,
actually
we
did a
love Levy.
show last week with a bunch of Boston comedians some of whom I hadn't seen in a long time. Bethany Van Delft was on, and Corey Manning, Chris
Yeah, we were
Tabb.
supposed to have her, and then
She
she
is actually scheduled as the next guest.
Oh,
Oh, great! Your first perfect. Mike.
I'm really turning things around.
We'll have
She
a-
is so terrific and on so many different levels. I mean, there's some
Well
really,
done,
really
Eli.
serious, heavy stuff you could get into with
I
her.
better confirm that.
I don't
and,
like getting into heavy
her as a
stuff. on
mother
this
and
show.
stuff. It's-
This
yeah,
is not a heavy stuff show.
Oh, yeah, I had her on.
What heavy stuff are we getting into?
I think that's what I,
I
think
don't
we should
know. Rick
define,
says-
and exactly how serious and
Not serious. Is
Okay.
that? I mean, we can
Well, I guess here's
play it
Then
by
I won't
ear.
bring it
But
up.
I don't like when people ask painful questions of guests on podcasts.
I here's the thing, Danny, that I'm gonna say that I really like about you. Number one, it seemed to me I was gonna say that like the dynamic between you and Rick, like the battle for this podcast's soul in a way, is like, what is the show going to be? When is it a comedy podcast in that it's a podcast about comedy where Rick asks thoughtful questions to comedians, like the thing that you brought up about, oh, do comedians start with writing and discover their character? Do they start with a character and discover their writing? Philosophical ideas that might be very valuable for people who are comedians, who are thinking about doing comedy, who love comedy and want to get, under the hood and behind the scenes? Or is it a comedy podcast that is a podcast where comedy happens? And Danny, you, through your silliness and chaotic overlording, but in a measured,
Overlording's a good word.
mindful way,
Yes.
like I feel like you are keeping everyone
hurt
on the
me.
track of making sure that there is comedy, and Rick is making sure that people are talking about and caring about comedy. So it's really like a beautiful relationship. I think now you're not mother and child. Now you are
and
romantically
Louis.
involved. And I mean, it's a wonderful creative relationship. But the thing that you just said, which I really like, is that you don't want to ask people, I would say you probably don't want to ask people painful questions that they don't want asked of them. You don't want to
Yeah.
spring pain on people
Yeah.
or be like, oh, so I hear that you have some trauma, But here's the thing is, with comedians, for the most part, if a comedian is in their act, in their public life, talking about the things in their life that have brought them pain, that they're maybe alchemizing into catharsis and joy for themselves and others, and creating comedy and art out of it. Like, that seems like a way in where you could be like, may I ask you about this thing that you've talked about, as opposed to, I talked to your mother and I asked her, what's the thing that you least want to, can I see some naked pictures from when you were a baby?
So do comedians do it for themselves or for the audience? Question each comedian has to answer for themselves.
That's
Fucking
what do you do,
got
Rick?
'em. Take that, comedians.
What's your answer, Rick? You're a comedian.
I think we do it for ourselves. And the evidence I would give is every benefit you've ever been to. I think it was Marin brought up, or no, someone brought this up of like, anytime you're at a benefit and all the comedians are like, oh, wow, thank you for donating your time and all this. And the comedians are like, oh yeah, sure. I love this cause. What is this again? Okay. If it's about, we don't care. Just give me the, half-hour stage time. If everyone's like, oh, it's great that you're supporting these people, we're like, oh, well, that's a nice bonus, but I just wanted to do the show.
Rick, you love philosophical questions. I got one for you.
Okay.
Is there anything inherently wrong with doing something for yourself?
Oh, no, not at all. And I think it's, for me anyways, it's couched in the whole thing of like, oh, look, I'm a wonderful person. I'm doing it for you. But really, I'm doing it for me.
You want to do something for Danny and mute him?
You can't. That is one condition I will not. Look, we can get philosophical all we want. We can ask people questions if you think that's good. I'm not going to do it. I'll sit here and be pretty. But the one condition I will not give up, I retain the mute power.
I did. Watching Danny hit his head against his own microphone is why I did that, which was for myself, and it was very good.
Also, Rick, from talking to you on this and other podcasts, I feel like, first of all, that when we do things for others, that is also a way to do something for ourselves. And when we care for ourselves, that is also something that, if you don't eat enough food, you might be a jerk. So it's important to eat enough food, like not you specifically, but me.
Okay.
Like yesterday, I didn't eat enough food early in the day.
And yet your stomach, your side still hurt.
Yes, unrelated to my stomach, I think. But
What'd you do? You were a jerk? What'd you do?
Oh, just
Is it about how you had trauma as a kid?
No, not about that.
Huh?
No,
You ever see someone die when you were really young?
No, I
Fucking
actually-
jerk-ass bitch, jerk.
I
it
remember
funny? I can't
when
do
this is a
it.
funny bit, Danny.
Who are
I
your
remember,
guys?
You're one
Name
of my
them
guys.
now.
Yeah. My guys are Danny Hatch, Rick Jenkins, and until next week, Annie Levy. Sorry, not Danny Levy.
Danny Levy.
Eli Levy.
Daniel
yeah.
Levy.
That
as
I
opposed
would
to
love.
Dan Levy as opposed to
Hey.
the other Dan Levy. and
Oh
then
yeah,
Eli
Dan Levy. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
I would
sorry.
love
I
if
said it wrong.
everyone
Yeah.
changed their name to Danny. for this show. If that happened, I would end the show on a
Why
satisfying.
Danny and not Daniel or Dan?
Never fit. Never fit. And please do not ask me any
Well, I
more
mean, if he
questions
doesn't
about
go
my
by
private
Danny,
life.
how else is he going to go by Danny Boy?
That's right.
That's
That's why I
Dan
used to call
Boy.
my fans, my Danny boys.
Dan.
And girls and
Go-
my Danny all genders.
Go from Danny Boy to Dan the Man.
Yeah, Dan
No,
never fit
no,
either.
no, no, no. That doesn't.
How about
fit.
ooh, I've got it.
Uh-huh.
Danny Man.
Danny Man?
Also, how about Danny Boys with an I
Sure.
Ooh,
and a dollar
Z.
sign.
that's
Oh.
a little. That's a little spice on there.
Da- Danny, wait. Have
yeah.
you ever thought about this? That
Okay.
I've heard a thing that people, the same way, in a similar way, perhaps, to the fact that like if your face is more symmetrical, then people will perceive you as like more conventionally good looking. Similarly, if your first and last name are syllable wise balanced, that is auditorily like enjoyable in a similar aesthetic way to the ear, like Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks. Like obviously,
Eli Levy.
Johnny
Uh,
Carson.
yeah. But so Danny Hatch
Of
is
course you would say Johnny
imbalanced,
Carson.
but
Uh-huh.
Dan Hatch, that's a
That's a
superhero.
balanced name.
Yeah, I'm not a balanced guy.
Ooh,
I'm
what
all
about
over the place?
Danny Hatchie?
Now that.
But you
that's
wouldn't
a really
recommend I
solid
went
idea.
with Ricky Jenkins.
I mean Ricky Jenkins with the right tone,
Ricky.
perhaps.
I think maybe younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
could.
there's something about that EY thing that as you get older, I think doesn't quite fit.
You know,
It would be
when I was
Ricky with an EY, not just a Y.
just a Y, yeah.
No, wait,
When I
with
was
an
a kid.
with an I, Ricky.
Like
I
a
love
lime
to
Ricky.
Say at EY J.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, we almost got shut down for.
Then why not Michael Kaplan?
A fine question.
I don't think enough has been devoted to the spellings in particular.
What about Michelangelo Kaplan?
Michelangelo Kaplan Angelo. I
No, that
think
would be
we've got it.
That'd be 232.
Michelangelo Kaplan Angelo. So
Yeah.
when I was a kid,
Okay.
my dad was a teacher,
Mm.
and he had a friend who was also a teacher, a grown-up named Paulie. And I remember he went by Paulie as an adult. He'd gone by Paulie when he was younger, I assume. I should ask. Shouldn't always assume. But I remember in our family, at
Marky's
least
brother-in-law.
I remember like laughing as a child at the idea of like a grown man named Paulie. It's like at some point when you grow up, you shed the E, but now I don't feel like that.
Polly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, look at The Sopranos. You got your Polly Walnuts.
Mhm.
You got your Polly
Yeah,
Wally
baby.
Doodle all the day.
Someone named Polly kicked Rick out of the best shit he had going in his life.
Some point I'd like to bring up is that my name, I was born, my birth certificate name was Ricky. And when I was 6, they legally changed it to Rick because they were afraid that with Vietnam going on, that I'd be drafted into the army and that the Y would make me seem diminutive. So they changed it legally to Rick. So that's my actual legal name.
I mean,
My
the army
question
would've
for
found a
you
way-
guys-
found a way
That
to
was
do
some
that anyway.
8D chess your parents were playing. at
My
6
big
years
question
old.
for you guys is
Hang on, you're okay. Sorry, go ahead.
my big
Nope,
question for you
sorry.
guys is that the type of stuff I should be talking about with the students of the classes that we teach at the Comedy Studio? You can enroll in through thecomedystudio.com.
Oh, you should
about
absolutely
what
make
sort
fun
of
of their
name you
names.
should
You
have.
should make fun of their birth names. You should make fun of their
No,
family
is
names.
that part of becoming a comedian? Is thinking how are you going to identify yourself? How are you going to? Do you want a balanced name? Do you how do
Rick,
you dress? How does that affect?
You
the
should
character?
treat people differently in your class based on their legal names. Yes.
Rick, here's what I love about that question. Number one, it seems on the face of it that it is like a comedy philosophy question, like you like, but on another level, it is a hilarious question for you to ask because the answer is no. That is not what you should be teaching the students of your comedy class. But here's the thing that happened to me
But
years
if
ago.
you're working from character out, it's something you would consider.
But it's stand up 101. I feel like that's not a 101 concern.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have to
All right,
teach a work
class
room.
number 1.
It's true, you
Names.
do
Let's talk
teach,
about them. You, what's
Teach
your
a
name?
workroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should rename all your students.
I that would be a funny bit
Hey,
to do.
Hat. You're named Hat now.
Well, a good interested Dana J. Bine used to do this. A good interesting experiment is first day of class, have students say what they think the other person is, how they see the other person, and then have them do a list of things they see in themselves. So you get an idea of what your character presentation is.
So, but do that, but instead of characteristics, do it with what name do you think that person is? And then what name do you think you are?
That'd be interesting, yeah.
Sincerely, about maybe when I moved to New York in 2008, and I think I started achieving like some measurable like achievement points of like comedy success. You know, I was on Live at Gotham on Comedy Central in 2008. And then a few more things as the years would come further. And there was a comedian who I met around then who was like an Italian guy. I don't think he's doing comedy anymore. He was a funny guy, a nice guy. He's sort of like the not the hero of this story.
Okay.
So I don't want to reveal. It's not important who he is.
Supporting character.
But so this guy says to me, he's like, I see you, Mike, like you're achieving this success. And you've got like these glasses and this look and this like nerd thing going, like, and that it seems like with superhero movies and like pop culture now, like dorks and like comic books and things are getting pretty hot. So he's like, so my question to you is, should I get a pair of glasses? And I was like, I need these to see.
Yeah.
Like, but
Can I guess
so,
who it was?
well-
Can I guess who it was?
You can.
Dante Nero.
That's not correct. That was a very funny guess.
There are two
Woody
Italian
Allen.
names he's got.
Woody Allen actually talks about getting those glasses, the big wireframe or tortoiseshell sort of big intellectual glasses, to appear more intellectual because that fit into the character. The Woody Allen character is much more of a consciously developed character than we realize.
Here's what I feel like I used to wear. I think when I started doing comedy, I was wearing contacts most of the time. And then at some point I was in a relationship long enough that I was like, I don't think I think I like how I look with glasses. But the reason I started wearing contacts was because when I was 14 or 15, a girl a year older than me in high school said, hey, take off your glasses. You should get contacts. And it took me into my 20s that I was like, I don't think I need to wear contacts to impress that high school junior anymore, who is now an adult as well. But so if I need glasses, I do need to see. Then I go to the glasses store and I'm like, which ones do I want to wear? What do I want to look like? It was always more important to me what I was saying than what I looked like. Of course, if you dress in a certain way, it will either like it could be distracting, it could draw attention away from what you're saying, it could complement what you're saying. Like if you're like, if your tone is like professorial, you could either dress like a professor or go the exact opposite direction and like have your tone and appearance be incongruous. For me, my goal was always to not think that much about my appearance and like not have too much in the way of like other people thinking that much about my appearance.
Right.
So I wanted to be like, think meticulously about like what will not distract anyone from what I'm saying.
Right. You're trusting the organic process in that. Wish we had a woman on this show. That would be great. Because that was a big problem for women back when I started doing comedy. Is there was two rules: either you dress down, because if you were dressed nice and people found you attractive, the men would want to fuck you and the women would hate you for it. And so women were known, had to put a lot of thought into exactly how they dressed to do comedy. It was very tightly binding. I look at it, I wonder, because I really enjoy the Johnny Carson suits. I wonder how much am I playing to character? What does that say about the character? The general rule has always been you want to dress just a little bit better than your audience.
I mean,
I
like as
thought that
long
was
as you're
like-
never
Put down the
talking about the
audience.
suits on stage, that's fine.
I thought
Danny?
that was like a
I've never mentioned it
court-ordered
before on
thing
stage,
that you
right?
had to wear. That you enjoy that? I thought like a judge said.
Court's order wardrobe.
Yeah.
That's where you
Like-
reached for the joke.
Like the
I think you
Punisher.
should come into class ready to teach
Yeah.
the first class
Well,
of,
it's
of,
just
the,
so-
of the session, and you come in and you have to be like, all right, everybody, here's your suits, suit up.
Yeah.
You're ready to do comedy.
I just can't fathom anyone wearing it for fun. So the easiest thing for me to assume is that the law said you had to. But but more power to you, sir.
Well, why did you pick that T-shirt? Bad example.
This
He
one,
ran out
I'm
of PBR t-shirts.
a don't have any PBR t-shirts.
Narragansett t-shirts. I'm sorry.
I don't have any Narragansett t-shirts either. I
But
would
don't
love
you
one.
want one?
Do you have
would love one.
any beer T-shirts?
I don't think I do.
I got some
don't think
Buffalo
I
Bill
do.
stuff you can have.
Do you have any
no, thank
T-shirts
you.
that have beer stains all over them?
The stains come out.
You
pretty easy
throw
to
up
wash.
after beer.
No, they
Not
have
after beer.
sugar-free Monster Energy drink stains on them.
Yes. This one used to be white. It's a green shirt for those listening at home.
Danny, it seems you were
Um,
in the middle of something.
I
It
forgot.
always seems that way.
Yeah, I'm a guy who's constantly in motion. Hey, we talked about throwing up earlier. Let's talk about the Christmas party, the holiday party, I mean, the holiday show.
Oh, speaking of which, during that conversation, my mom texted me asking us to change the subject from vomiting as quickly as possible.
Ah,
So let's
well,
get back into it.
Done.
she is not a corporate interest we are beholden to, so we're
Maybe
very
she
so-
should
I'm
be the
very
Levy
sad.
that leaves. I know
It
she's
was
not a
Olam
Levy.
International.
Here-
Find her online at
so-
olaminternational.com. Please hire him. Thank you.
I didn't realize that was her
your-
maiden name. And now we know we can get your passwords.
Are we gonna lose your mother
No,
as a
I've
listener?
never used my mom as my password.
Oh yeah. Will you ask your mother how I compare to you
Yeah.
in her honest assessment
We-
as potential
yeah.
co-host?
Well, now that
We
you've
wanna
asked that,
keep her
now we'll
on
just
board.
wait for me to get a text.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yes,
The question
anything
has
we
now
could
been
do
asked.
to keep her on board, because you've said that if you're not on an episode, she won't listen to it.
I mean,
Uh,
also,
But I hope by now she'd have developed enough fondness for us.
I can't
that
make
she would
I
still
can't make
listen.
specific
or at least
promises.
subscribe and play it on mute. Yes,
But my mother will potentially start listening
Ah,
if I start co-hosting.
Ah,
so we
great.
might lose
Dangling
a
that
mom,
out there.
gain a mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have such a small fan base that we do get into bargaining in such granular. It's not what kind of audience you can bring to the show. It's literally
Which
what
mom?
audience member can you bring to a show. Hey, great. Hey, but that holiday party, boy, wasn't that fun.
It was great.
The holiday show, I mean. And I'm sure the party was fun too. But there was an ongoing game Nikki Luparelli hosted. There was
Mhm.
an ongoing game of Never Have I Ever drinking game, and one of the points was Never Have I Ever thrown up in the comedy studio bathroom. And reader, I had to take a drink. It was the only
Which
time
night
I
was it?
It was in fact after the Mike Kaplan and Zach Sherwin show
Ah,
in late 2018
remember
at
that
the
show.
at the new comedy studio.
My
I was
parents
coming
were at that show.
I was coming as a guest, as a fan only, to see my friends, and I had a bit too much fun, and I threw up in the bathroom, and Rick had to drive me home, but not before I threw up in front of PA's Lounge,
Yes.
Mm.
which
Oh, yeah.
was one thing that they were really adamant about not happening if Comedy Studio moved in next door. They did
Yeah.
not want people throwing up in front of PA's Lounge. We were like, well, you're PA's
Did
Lounge.
they tell
I
that
think
to the people that go to PA's lounge?
well, that was what we said, and then I threw up in front of PA's Lounge, so
Fucking
we
got 'em.
then
I love it.
lost the opportunity. And I don't know if they
Ah.
ever knew, because I was still friendly with all those guys. I would wave to them as I walked into work. They would wave to me. So I don't know if they ever figured it out, but I did throw up in front of PA's Lounge, and I just like to put that out there. So
Danny.
sorry, Eli's mom, and we're done talking about it
Something
now.
I
Oh,
really
Yeah.
like
my
about
mom
the
has
Christmas-
confirmed that she will still listen if Mike is made the host.
Wow! Oh wow! But
So,
All right, that's up.
Danny, the ball is in your court.
Danny,
yeah.
may I bring us back to a topic that
mhm.
Rick brought up, which the idea of
Sure.
writing when you're starting out in comedy, like determining are you going to be a character, which again is a spectrum of like, you know, a character with a different name than your own or a different profession than your own. Like if whether you are or are not a cable guy, like will you tell jokes from that
Mhm.
character or different? But of course, I think we've talked about before, like everyone, you know, Chris Rock on stage and Louis Black on stage yell more than they do regularly in life, in my understanding. I've
Discovered
met,
Chris Rock is a very shy man.
and so when I have done stand-up workshops for children, for like teenagers at my summer camp that I've done variously over the past decade and a half or so, one of the first things that I just start kids out trying to like think of anything. Like I'm like, if you think of anything that's funny, write it down or
Mhm.
raise your hand, or, you know, when we go around, if you need help thinking of funny things, I'm like, let's start with, there's a lot of different exercises, but one of the things I'm like, what's something that's like unique about you? What's something about your life that has embarrassed you or embarrasses you about your parents, or like, what's something about who you are? And like, at any point, I'm always saying like, if you think of something funny that's about a different thing than what I'm asking, then that's great too. These are all just like, jumping off points. So I feel like if somebody has a strong idea about what they want to do or who they want to be or what they want to talk about, then great. Then they don't need guidance if they have that strong idea. But for somebody who's like, where can I start? I'm like, a great place to start is what is true about you? What do you really feel? What annoys you? What is important to you? What is meaningful? What do you find funny?
I start the first class I've always done, had people list 3 of their favorite comedians for a couple reasons. And one is because, okay, that gives me jokes I can refer to for examples and all that sort of stuff. But the bigger thing is then I know where they're going to be coming from as a comedian, because you're thinking, I want to do comedy. That person's a comedian. I should be like them. So you can sort of start seeing the difference between them trying to do comedy and what they are. And as those two come together is where you get something.
And so if you had one student who was like, I love this particular comedian, that inspires you to be like, oh, maybe you should determine what your character is, and then the jokes will come from there. But if another comedian's like, I love this joke writer, I'm like, oh, then what is it that you love about these like math equations? And do you want to also start coming up with those? Like, so there's not one answer for every comedian to start either from, one end of the spectrum or another.
Now, Danny, you've been, and Eli also, you've been sort of in that beginning phase of comedy. How much thought goes into that? Is it just I'm trying to write a good joke, or is it I'm trying to perform a good joke?
I mean, I'm a very go with the flow kind of person, so I don't really think too hard about it. I just these are my jokes. I'm gonna go do them as best as I can, and if they sound like a comedian I like, then well, I guess that makes sense.
And the persona will organically come out of these jokes you like.
Yeah, I just go up there and I do it, and if it goes well, it goes well. If it goes bad, it goes bad, and I learn.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I put thought into my jokes, but I don't put I don't like overthink.
Yeah.
So Eli, you're not thinking like, who is Eli Levy?
No.
And Danny, you're
And what
also
does he
not
care
thinking,
about?
who is Eli Levy?
I try to write jokes in Eli's voice. No, I've found. Excuse me, I have the coronavirus. It's a novel I'm working on.
Excuse me,
Danny.
And that was a great example of what I'm about to say. I no longer do much comedy that is a performance, and I have found, looking back, that it turns out I did not put that much thought into what I was writing, because it was all my jokes were lightweight bullshit garbage that just are bad.
But
So neither of you started with the what do I care about? What
so good?
What's that?
So neither of you started with the what do I care about? What do I want to say?
I wanted to be famous.
Okay.
I just started by my first thought was, if I want to do comedy, I should go do an open mic, and then that thought process is just psyching yourself up to sign your name in, and then actually go on stage when your name is called, and then just trying the jokes that I wrote.
Also, Rick, I'd like to add that when I started out, I wasn't taking the I wasn't taking the advice that I would have started. I started from the place also of just like Eli, like Danny, not thinking about it other than being like, this is what it seems like is a good thing to say. Not having, I don't think that I specifically had or knew that I had meaningful things to say at that point.
So if you were on ayahuasca talking to young Mike Kaplan, you would advise him to do comedy differently?
No, I mean, I think
Say,
that
hey,
it's...
Hey, kid, start thinking about what you want to say instead of do these words go together?
I mean, I don't think so, because I think every step along the path that I took, like, makes sense that, I think Patton Oswalt once said in an interview that, like, for the comedians who were involved in, like, the original alt comedy scene, your Janine Garofalo's, Mark Maron's, Dana Gould's,
Merman?
and and so he was saying, like, these are all people who had their act from comedy clubs that they'd, perform for money. And that initially the alt scene was about, alternative venues and also alternative structures, like being able to just experiment and be more free form, like talk about their day or, meander and discover things. And he said he likened it to like being a great chef. He's like, you don't start with molecular gastronomy. You start with make a bowl of rice perfectly. And so like if you the analogy is like you wouldn't tell somebody who wanted to become the best chef in the world, like, well, then you should start making the most complicated things. You should look at the best chefs and try to do exactly what they're doing. No, you should start with the basics. Like, so the basics in comedy of like, whether it's
Eggs.
setups and punchlines, whether it's, what was that, Danny?
Eggs.
Eggs.
Comedy or cooking,
I
eggs.
think we've beaten Danny into submission.
Now he just sits there and says eggs through the whole podcast.
This is my energy drink energy versus my Narragansett
Eggs.
Light energy. A bit more subdued.
But you are a bit of a subdude.
I have a hard out
Corbin,
at
you
9:30,
know,
by the
mister.
way.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to stretch it out so we can get you off the show and finally have some fun for once.
I'm
I'm having a great time. Can
I tell a story now?
Oh,
Or are you in the middle of
please.
one?
Story
Let
from
me
Dan.
let me finish this bit
Mhm.
Okay.
of information that I would say, no matter how you start, whether like some people are trying to say things but don't know how to say them. Some people are trying to create, the structure of jokes without having specifically anything to say. It's very rare to have both from the get-go. Like, both things need fostering as you move forward. Like, maybe you start with structure and then get to what you really care about talking about. Maybe you start with what you really care about talking about and then find structure. So whichever one individually is like where you are, perhaps eventually know that you'll potentially find the other, even if it's not like saying meaningful things, but saying the things that you want to say, telling the jokes that you want to tell or the stories. But yeah, I'd say no matter whatever advice I got when I was starting, I was not going to be good. Everybody is not going to be good when you start. And you'll just be not good in different ways, depending, until you get enough reps in of performing, writing, and
I have
thinking.
many thoughts on that, which we'll do in future podcasts. But Danny, you had a story?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Rick. And by the way, Mike, how we do segue on the show is in the middle of someone's story, say, I have a story. Can I go now?
Oh,
So just bear that in mind moving forward.
thank
I
you.
started doing comedy. In
I have a story.
Oklahoma
Can I go now?
City. God damn it. Hoisted, as I like to say,
Masterful.
my own
That was masterful.
petard.
Timing.
Timing.
Please continue. Me?
No, Danny. I don't
So I started doing comedy in Oklahoma City for a few months before I moved to New York, and I would go to this open mic that was at a pizza restaurant that had like an outdoor seating area, and it was a music open mic, but they let me do comedy, so I had 15 minutes at my disposal every week to just bullshit. And the first time I did it, they said, and this story is not satisfying, so don't be gearing yourself up for it.
I'm
to,
already satisfied.
for it to,
There's a bucket there if you need it.
to land.
I really believe in you,
There's a
Danny.
bucket there. The first time I went, they said, "Oh, our mic's not working, so maybe you could just walk around and engage the various tables with your jokes."
Hmm.
So that didn't go well. The second time I did it, they said, "Oh, our mic's not working." I said, "That's okay. I have my electric shaver in my backpack. I'll just stand on the stage and use, I just need something to pretend it's a mic."
Danny, quick question.
And
Do you
yes.
still have that shaver? Because
I have a different one, but not
Oh.
that one.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it seems like you have a large beard right now.
I don't follow. And
Shave your face.
Third time.
Yeah.
Third time, I thought it would be cool to drop the mic, and I dropped the mic at the end of my set, and it landed on the this part of the mic, and made a very bad sound, and I got in a little trouble. And the last time, my then girlfriend's father came to see me, and I called a woman a cunt in the audience.
You called
Now
him that?
That's comedy.
No, I called a woman was heckling me, didn't like my jokes, and I called her a C word. Not gonna say it again. We get one per episode. And I also said the classic line, which I had then only recently discovered. Hey, I don't go to your job and kick the dick out of your mouth.
Oh, wow. In the wild, for
It's
real.
so funny that you helped me deal with a situation at the club during an open mic night when another comic did that exact same thing.
Oh,
You
that's
remember that?
right.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I was
Was
about
that
to
like
leave
a
when
moment for you?
No.
You didn't even remember that you had done that, did you?
No. So did Yeah, so it was. Yeah, that's right. But it was another comedian heckling this comic, right? Or like another open mic.
Another open
uh,
micer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danny.
What I
Another
love about
comedian.
the club,
And
the way
so,
I like to see it, what I love about the club, the way I like to see is that Danny that we would feel bad that a comic would do something that wasn't theirs more than the fact that they had called someone.
Oh no, it was
More than
No,
what
no,
they
we
did. It's
were-
like, you can't do that here. It's
It,
just,
No,
it
it
had
was-
multiple aspects to it that were not good.
Yeah, it
insult
escalated
people all you
almost
want,
to a
just don't
point
use
where
other people's
yeah.
The
words.
person that got called a cunt tried to go back into the green room to confront the comedian,
Yeah,
so we had to
and
deal with that situation.
Goodness.
good
but,
times.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
It did not spark a single memory of Danny doing
No, I guess because after that happened, I didn't then have to sit with my then girlfriend's father and
that. Ooh, that's great.
pretend
Now-
like I had just said all that.
I also
vile
have
shit
the
on
email open
stage.
of the criticism of you hosting the open mic.
Oh, let's read it. Let's read it.
If I may, before we do that, just
okay.
offer two quick things. Number one, it seems like somebody coming backstage after having been called the C word might be like a crime, even like they're not supposed to be there. I'm just setting up a joke to call them perhaps the felonious cunt. And it's do you understand? It's
We get
play-
one per episode. and
Thank.
I already
Am I the felonious C
Wait,
word
is it
now?
one as a group or is it one as a?
One per person.
one as a
Wow.
group.
One per-
Whoever
Oh,
gets
boy.
to it
Let's
first gets to
be
it.
fair about it. One per person. Come on.
Good thing we edit.
We don't.
Danny. The other thing I wanted to say is
I want
like
you to know though that we don't before you take the job.
I
And
would
then
like
edit
to
that part out of you saying that we don't edit.
yeah, just to edit out the don't part of we don't edit.
Yeah.
And then it'll
And
make
that-
perfect sense. So the
That's
only thing I
that's
want
the advice I gave Mike Birbiglia. I said just call the movie Think Twice. Edit out the don't part.
Danny.
Yeah.
I just want to say
Mhm.
I really liked hearing your stories of open mic not successes. Though
you.
that was a success, you telling us those stories. And if we were
that
gonna
beautiful?
if we were
Tragedy
gonna
plus
turn it
time.
into a like a sci-fi story,
Okay.
the fact that the microphone they didn't have a sound system or a microphone the first time or the first two times
Mhm.
could be because you in the future broke their
Broke
microphone.
their microphone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have.
My local recommendation would be just
Mm.
go online and get any comedy album from any local comic, because right now it could really help. And boy, there's some great stuff out there. And my comedy recommendation would be similar. Go online to GaryGoldman.com. His Christmas album is a free download. So those are my recommendations.
Great. And you have to go then, I take it?
14 minutes.
So then why did you force our hand?
Make
Eli,
sure I got it in there.
Eli, this is fun. This is I like that you're bringing this up now. Please continue with
Oh,
what
yeah.
you were going to
Okay,
do.
so a little backstory is for one of our open mics we had Danny. I don't remember if you volunteered or if Rick just volunteered you.
I think I volunteered as tribute.
Who knows? A lot of Narragansets were had by you that night, but
Mhm.
Danny was gonna host the entire 4-hour open mic, and he did.
Wearing Rick's suit.
Wearing Rick's suit. There was a bit where he took his pants off on stage. That was great.
That was a
Um,
different time. And that bit was Rick was gone that time. And Rick has this rule where you're not allowed to wear pants on stage or shorts on
For
stage.
shorts on stage. You're not
So
allowed to
I
wear
went on
pants
stage with shorts on pulled over my pants and I said like fuck you Rick, and I was like wait a minute, this isn't right. So then I sat down and I took my shoes off and my pants off and then put the shorts on. It was not lecherous. I was wearing very
That
long
part is not mentioned in
boxers.
this email, by the way. But
Well, this was a different
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that was a different instance.
so after Danny hosted the open mic, we got an email from a comedian.
Are we gonna say who it is?
No, I'm not gonna say. who it
Okay,
is.
well let's just say they don't believe coronavirus is real.
Sure.
Okay, and
No,
that
we'll
ought to
figure
narrow,
that out.
that ought
Um,
to narrow it down.
I am not narrowing it down, but Danny, you
Is
do
it
as you
Brian
please.
Regan?
It's Brian.
Comedian Brian Regan sent us an email
He
to our
was
booking account.
pissed.
Brian Regan said, "Hello. I've been around the block a few times and in the comedy community for a few years now, and from the very beginning, the only thing I was interested in doing was to produce and host shows and learn how these things work. As an event
Great.
planner by day, hosting a show for me was pretty simple and relatively easy." Brian Regan, the event planner. "Not painless, but not as bad as it could have been. Last Tuesday, I watched someone I've never seen on stage host. The whole time I kept thinking, how did he get there? Who does he know? Why is he complaining about filling 5 minutes? How can I get that opportunity? Was he a comic in residence I missed? all these questions, no one to answer them except you. And and they capitalized you.
Will always tickle me. Yeah.
Who
Oh,
who
it's
re-
good shit.
who received this email? Who was the
This was
the-
sent to our booking account and also directly to Rick Jenkins, it seems.
and Danny is the booker, so he was the one
Danny,
that.
the booker of the Comedy Studio, Danny.hatch at thecomedystudio.com.
No, at this point, I believe it was
Running gag.
Sasha. So yeah, that was fun. I'm glad we finally. It's been a long-standing inside joke for us, and I'm glad that we are now sharing it with the public.
Did
Talked
anyone
about it before.
write back to this person?
No. No answer.
Well, what are you gonna do?
Did.
Oh, did you?
Rick might have, but not on the booking account.
Okay. Yeah. What'd you say? What are you doing,
Did
by
I?
the way?
I mean, I did. Huh.
Tune in next week.
Rick over there.
Yeah, my answer to that sort of stuff is a general.
Why are you
Oh, you
standing
might be
so
right,
far
you might be
away?
wrong, but I can't really make creative decisions on those bases.
Great. Well, it seems like you're ready to check out.
I'm making the coffee because I had heard that letter a few times.
Okay.
Making the
great.
coffee is a euphemism, by the way.
Yeah, it's from SNL. All right.
He's
Well, Rick
making the
already
coffee.
did his comedy recommendations. Mike, let's hear yours and your local business.
Oh, my local business is, as always, Albertine Press in
Mm-hmm.
in Cambridge. I believe it's in their physical stores in Inman Square, right on the same block or so that the old Improv Boston used to be on. Albertine Press. They have great cards for the holidays and for any occasion, and probably things that aren't cards as well. My friend Shelley is the owner of the business, and it's good. And comedy recommendations. Ah, boy. I like a lot of comedy. Let's see. What have I comedied recently? Can we come back to me?
Maybe a Katie Lazarus podcast.
Oh my goodness.
So something from Katie.
Thank you, Rick. For sure. The comedy world and the world has seen the loss of Katie Lazarus, a wonderful, beautiful soul, and a wonderful, funny person. I've known her. I knew her for years. Seems like forever. She died of, I believe, breast cancer about a week ago. And I went to here's the thing, a story about her. I went to a Shiva, a virtual sort of memorial for her a couple days ago. And there were many comedians from the Boston and New York and LA, sort of all over the place areas. She had touched a lot of lives. And here's something that Julia Razzi shared that I really liked. Julia said that when she was starting out doing comedy, she would send her mailing list, just send her shows to everybody. Be like, come to my shows, including other comedians, just everybody she knew, in a way that we all might have done when we were starting out. Being like, please, me, something. And that Katie Lazarus was the person who would always write back enthusiastically and be like, a show? That's great. Kick-ass, And so her podcast, her show that she did either monthly or however frequently she did was called, I believe, Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She interviewed people like Jon Stewart, I think in his first interview after he left The Daily Show. That's what I want to say is a thing I read.
Yeah, there's listen to a couple yesterday. They're great.
Oh yeah, she's super. I think she introduced me to AJ Jacobs, the author of
Living biblically.
Yeah, The Year of Living Biblically. I invited her as a friend to do my podcast, and at the time I was like, and bring anybody that you want, and she brought this author who I love. So those are my comedy recommendations. Thank you, Rick. Katie Lazarus podcasts and AJ Jacobs, The Year of Living Biblically.
That was very good, Mike.
Thanks, Danny.
Wonderful.
For my local business recommendation, there's this great Italian market in my neighborhood. I don't remember the name. So that is what I would like to recommend. And
That sounds like a comedy recommendation.
This is,
Danny.
got
this is the
some-
last time we have to do this.
got some good pine
Oh, we have
nuts
one more next
cookies. We have one more next
Oh.
week. Our big Eli Sendoff / Mike's first time in the chair / Bethany's here show. And for my comedy recommendation, it's become something of a tradition for Rose and I to watch this movie every holiday season. It's The Night Before, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen, and Anthony Mackie. and it's just a great Christmas classic. It's about three friends who are growing older, growing apart. They celebrate Christmas Eve every year, and this is their last time before they all, go their separate ways. One is having a baby, one is a pro football player, and one is stuck in a constant state of arrested development. And there's lots of hijinks and fun, but where the movie really shines is in the end when it gets emotional and it ties the movie together. And it's just it's a great movie, and it's destined to be a future holiday classic. The Night Before, starring
Seth Rogen.
Anthony Mickeys and Sloth Rogen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said his name right.
Yeah.
I saw that movie. It's great.
It's really great. We watch it every Christmas time. It's
I'm going to watch it this Christmas time then.
It's just nice to spend time with them. So,
symmetrical faces are supposed to be more attractive. Denzel Washington is known to have the closest to a completely symmetrical face that we know.
Anyone
That's
see
why-
Tenet
his
yet?
face. I really
Starring,
like his face.
Anyone see Tenet starring his son?
No,
No.
I have not.
Me
yet.
either.
It looks
I'm
good.
excited to
I
see
want to.
it. Me too. I hear watch it with the subtitles on though.
I hope
all right,
Denzel's face
Eli.
makes an appearance. It's very symmetrical, I've heard.
What you got? Take us home for the second to last time.
So for my small business recommendation, I of course recommend the Comedy Studio, and in general, I recommend people support their local comedy clubs because they really need it right now. Running a business when you're not allowed to is fucking hard as shit. So
Turns out it is.
it really
Also, the
does.
comedy, tough quick thing, the Comedy Cellar does a podcast each week, and the owner of Stand Up New York, the Creek in the Cave, which had to close recently, and the Comedy Cellar, the three owners get together and talk about the situation because Stand Up New York is doing guerrilla shows and protesting SNL's audience, and the Cellar is just sort of standing down and doing outdoor dining, and the Creek had to close. So it's a really interesting, very, very frank discussion where they yell at each other.
That sounds extremely sad. I'd rather people bought tickets and supported.
That
their
would help
comedy clubs.
too.
But yeah, listen to that podcast if you feel like being bummed out.
No, listen to this one.
If you feel like being bummed out.
for holiday cheer. But my comedy recommendation, actually, last night I rewatched the movie The Nice Guys with my girlfriend, and
We've mentioned
laugh
it a
per
lot,
minute.
but-
It is hilarious, and it's just one of those things where I love seeing actors step out of like their typecasting. And
Mhm.
Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe are absolutely hilarious in that movie, and I want to
It's a-
see them both do more comedies.
Great flick. It's a shame that it didn't do so hot at the box office, and there's not going to be a sequel because I would love a whole series of movies with those two.
It is an incredible movie.
Had your girlfriend seen it before, or were you?
No, and
showing
she
it to
was
her?
dying.
Yeah,
She loved
and
it.
laughing because there's a lot of
Laughing
regular dying in the movie. Oh, good.
at the same time, yeah.
It's the Shane Black movie who made good stuff until that Predator movie, which was very bad. But his other shit's great. Thank you, Eli. Mike, I'd say your callback was a success.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
But
I hope
really,
you
my mom.
passed the audition.
I hope so too. But really, whose opinion really counts the most here is Eli's.
Well, my mom said you're good to go, and
Okay.
she knows what's up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
would-
Eli is also, he has to approve somebody before he goes.
Mhm.
I also don't have to approve somebody if I go. I'm going either way.
No, he has to, or else he can't go. Those are the rules.
That is
So I-
the contract my soul has been signed to.
So I
Tag
would
you
like
in it.
to offer you a weekly contract,
Oh, great.
just like
Yeah, we
in
should talk about
Newsroom.
scheduling.
I would like to invite you to join us next week as in your first role as host, co-host of the
I love it.
podcast. It is our season 2 finale. We will be taking about a month-long break after that for the month of January. But
I love it.
Once we're back up and running in February, we'd love to have you back on again.
I'm
As
happy to do
co-host
it.
for every episode.
And so next week I'll be co-host. Will Eli also be the
Yes.
co-host, or will he be a special guest?
Nope, Eli will be the co-host.
Okay, so there'll be 3 co-hosts next week.
No, there will be 2 co-hosts and 1 host.
Oh, you're the host, Eli's the co-host, and I'm the other co-host.
Yes.
No, there will be 3
And
co-hosts.
I'm the special guest.
No one's
And
ever
2
said
special
that
guests.
our hierarchy tree at the Comedy Studio has ever been convoluted or confusing.
No, it's everyone knows where they
No one's ever
stand.
said that.
All right. Well, I
And what
understand
their
Rick has a
roles
hard
are.
out in 2 minutes, so
Okay, well, great. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you
Uh,
next week for our big Eli send-off / Bethany's guest / Mike's first time.
Oh wow, a
Um,
guest also. Wow,
mhm.
yeah. Oh, Rick's gone.
Well, like Rick's gone.
We'll talk to you later, folks.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
So long.
Bye.
Mike, text me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, pizza's here.